The Russian Foreign Ministry renews the principled Russian stance towards Syria. Peaceful Change Forces Coalition Delegation from Moscow announces that Russian stand is firm and solution is through dialogue without preconditions. The Golan people affirm adherence to the motherland on the 31st anniversary of the aggressive annexation decision. Good afternoon, this is Dania Nizam sitting in for Ala Ibrahim with our news bulletin. Deputy Prime Minister and expatriates and Foreign Minister Walid Al-Moallem met the UN Under-Secretary for Humanitarian Affairs Valerie Amos. The two sides expressed satisfaction over reaching an agreement on the humanitarian plan, which is a positive expression about the standing cooperation between Syria and the UN. Mr. Al-Moallem stressed that Syria highly appreciates the efforts exerted by the UN offices in Syria, urging the UN official to make this cooperation extend to other domains, especially the rehabilitation of the infrastructure and hospitals destroyed by terrorist groups. He affirmed that the US and EU unfair sanctions imposed on Syria stand behind the suffering of the Syrian citizens, demanding the UN to denounce these sanctions and ask these states to halt them. In turn, Amos expressed high appreciation for the great efforts exerted by the Syrian government for facilitating the work of UN offices in Syria. In rejection of the Israeli decision to annex the Golan and to stress its Syrian Arab identity, the people of Golan held a national event in the occupied town of Bogdanov. The participants stressed that the Golan people support the leadership of President al-Assad and the Syrian people and army until the sun of freedom shines again on the occupied Golan. They expressed their faith and that the Golan will be restored to the homeland, adding that betting on time to make the Golan people neglect their identity is a lost bet. Syria's permanent representative to the UN, BASHAR JAAFARI, reiterated Syria's readiness to cooperate with international organizations working in Syria. Al-Jafari was speaking at the UN General Assembly's open session to discuss the agenda item on strengthening the coordination of humanitarian and disaster relief assistance of the United Nations, including special economic assistance. He stressed Syria's deep belief in the importance of coordinating humanitarian efforts to convey humanitarian aid to the affected citizens in urgent circumstances in terms of the UN General Assembly resolutions. He added that the Syrian government throughout the current crisis spared no effort to provide urgent aid to its citizens and formed a committee to follow up on the humanitarian situation of the affected citizens. The Russian Foreign Ministry renewed the Russian stance towards Syria, saying that this stand is firm, as it has always been, and does not change.
Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Alexander Lukashevich told a press conference in Moscow in response to statements made by the U.S. State Department spokesperson Victoria Nuland that Russia did not sleep so as to wake up later, and its stance is firm and remains the way it has always been, without change. Lukashevich highlighted in this context the statements made by the Russian presidency envoy to the Middle East and Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov, in which the latter reiterated Russia's firm stance on the crisis in Syria based on the Geneva statement. He reaffirmed Russia's criticism of the NATO deployment of Patriot missiles near the Turkish-Syrian border, saying this issue does not encourage reaching a political solution in Syria. Lukashevich added that Moscow has expressed its concern over this development of situation as it realizes that the accumulation of more weapons, particularly this type of weapons, on the border in Turkey does not lead to a political solution, and it brings about an additional factor for tension between the two neighboring countries. Earlier, the Russian Foreign Ministry denied in a statement making any statements or interviews on the development of situation in Syria in the past few days. The statement stressed that The special representative of the Russian president for the Middle East and Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov made no statement or exclusive interviews, unlike what has been circulated by Russian and foreign media outlets.
The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov discussed with the delegation of the opposition Peaceful Change Forces Coalition headed by Dr. Qadri Jamil the current situation in Syria. The Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement that the talks stressed the need to end violence and move towards the political process in accordance with the Geneva Statement. According to the statement, Jamil stressed the readiness of the coalition to start an immediate dialogue with all groups of Syrian opposition that are interested in starting dialogue with the Syrian government to reach a political solution for the current situation. He added that conditions are ripe for such dialogue that has to lead to deep political change in a modern and democratic Syria. The Russian side stressed Moscow's readiness to contribute in all means to holding a Syrian dialogue with the aim of reaching a solution to the crisis in Syria. The People's Assembly has condemned the terrorist bombing that targeted the building of Ministry of Interior on Wednesday, in which a number of martyrs were killed. In a statement released, the People's Assembly said that this vicious act is another proof of the bankruptcy of Syria's enemies and their mercenaries of the armed terrorist groups, and unveiling their dark ideas that are based on perpetrating the most sinister crimes against the Syrians who are faithful to their homeland. The People's Assembly shouldered some Arab and regional powers that provide the terrorists with arms and money the responsibility of this bombing and other terrorist attacks, asserting that the MPs, among them the martyr Dr. Abdullah Kiruz from Aleppo, who have been targeted in the blast, would remain the pulse of the Syrians and their representative to realize their national aspirations and to build a better future. Border Patrol forces foiled an attempt by terrorists to sneak across the borders from Lebanon near Jisr on the Syrian-Lebanese borders, inflicting heavy losses upon them. An official source said that the terrorists tried to sneak across the borders using an illegal crossing point referred to as Majd and Al-Armut site in Tel Kala countryside, but the Border Patrol forces thwarted them, killing or injuring a number of them, while the remaining ones turned back and fled to Lebanon. In Aleppo countryside, an armed forces unit destroyed 6 cars along with the weapons and ammunition inside them, along with a terrorist base near Syria. A number of cars full of weapons and ammunition and terrorists were also destroyed on the Mansoura Baskati road, along with 4 cars and terrorist gatherings in Al-Misalmiye. Armed forces units carried out a series of operations targeting gatherings of terrorists in the town of Al-Rastan and Telbisa countryside. An official source said that bases of terrorists who were committing murders and vandalism near the road between Grejiz and Tumin in Al-Rastan were destroyed, along with terrorists' weapons and ammunition inside them. In Telbisa countryside, army units repelled terrorists who attempted to attack the villages of Hosh and Al-Zabadi and Sharshuh, inflicting heavy losses upon them. Units of the armed forces carried out a number of qualitative operations, destroying hideouts used by terrorists to store arms and ammunition and to perpetrate crimes and vandalizing acts against the civilians in Idlib countryside. The armed forces destroyed 3 pickup vehicles equipped with heavy machine guns in Marbled and Has towns, killing all terrorists in sight, among them Abdel Hadi Kuddo. Another unit clashed with an armed terrorist group in Marit Norman countryside, killing or wounding all its members and destroying 3 cars equipped with machine guns. Moreover, a unit of the armed forces clashed with a terrorist group that perpetrated acts of kidnapping, robbing and vandalizing in Tahrama, Marzita and Al-Ghadra in Marit Norman countryside, inflicting heavy losses among them. In Saraqib city and Khan al-Sabil and Masaran town, gatherings of terrorists, most of which were non-Syrians, were also targeted by the armed forces. After the break, stay with me with our economic news.